Hey everyone, this is Max and Maxx TCG. Thanks for joining me in another video. So in this video we're going over the Road to the King metagame report 8 and 9. So there's some interesting stuff in here. We're going to be looking at how the game has been changing. And one thing that's been brought up is that Kuriphoton has become more of a hand trap in the format to counter certain decks like Tenpai and Gimmick Puppet. So let's jump into the article and check it out together. So from the last report, we had Tenpai being the most represented at 25.3, Snake Eye at 20.4, Yubel at 10.2, Fire King at 5.5, Voiceless at 4.8, and Labyrinth at 3.8. With this one, we have Snake Eye at 22.2, so it actually overtook Snake Eye, Tenpai getting a little bit more representation. Tenpai's gone down back to 21, which I think was closer to where it was when it was metagame report 4.5, so kind of had a boost and went down. Yubel's gone up a little bit at 11.3. Fire King, Voiceless are about the same, and then we see a few differences with some other decks like Chimera and Rescue Ace being in here, where we're not seeing Labyrinth. And what else was in here before? We are seeing Voiceless, so we're not seeing Labyrinth, and still have the others. So we gotta see that Snake Eye has become the best deck in the OCG right now for this metagame report from 8 and 9. And I think one of the issues is I don't know if they were just properly preparing for Tenpai before, and I think now that we're seeing more people preparing for it, this deck is being easier to stop. But again, this deck can still just put a hamper on the metagame because they just hand trap you into the crown, open up the right board breakers, and they just OTK you still. So still a deck that's you have to prepare for. All right, so let's see, we got 55 Snake Eye decks, 49 Smeadsmith, 6 just pure Snake Eyes, 52 Tenpai Dragons, 28 Yubels, 27 Fiendsmith, so a huge Fiendsmith representation right now. Next we have 13 Fire King, 8 Sinful Spoil Snake Eye Fire King, and 3 Fiendsmith Sinful Spoil Snake Eye Fire King. So we're still seeing Snake Eye part of the Fire King engine, with some using the Fiendsmith engine, some not. I think it makes more sense in the pure than the regular, and there's also 2 Fiendsmith Snake Eye Fire King. So no Sinful Spoils, I'm assuming, just Snake Eye and Fire King, probably just for the Poplar to get their starters and stuff. Then we have 11 Voiceless Voice, 8 Grass Branded. We've seen Branded doing pretty well here, so it makes sense they're using Grass as well. 7 Chimera. Chimera's been doing pretty good. 7 Rescue Ace. I think, again, still very good in a format with Maxx. And then 5 Ritual Beast. We see, I think, Ritual Beast getting a little bit of a pickup, doing pretty good. And they have Maxx, which I think is not good for Ritual Beast. So that's cool to see them doing well. 5 Runic, 5 Salamangreat, 5 Whitewoods. We see some increase on Salamangreat and Whitewoods. I think Runic was maybe gone up by 1. Or was that 4 in the last metagame report? 4 Fiendsmith Unchained, 4 Labyrinth, 4 Sprite. I think Sprite getting an increase. 3 Centurion. I think Centurion getting a small increase. 3 Infernoid. They've gotten some new supports, so doing well there. And also 3 Memento and 3 Tachyon. Again, some other decks we haven't seen mentioned that I think will do well in the TCG as well, with Tachyon getting new support and Memento being decent right now with the support it has. So just kind of go through. These are the rest of the others that you can look at if they interest you. But we're not going to read through everything here, because once you get to 1 and 2 outs, I do think it's more about the player doing really well with the deck, being very good in their technical play and good with their meta calls, where the higher numbers we're kind of seeing more of an overall effect on the meta game and not more of a kind of strange case scenario because the player's doing well. Hey everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content, hit that thumbs up button, give the video a like, and leave a comment if you have any discussions you want to start. And consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of this type of content. Everyone, thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll get back into it. So we have Snake Eye. So we have Kuriphoton could be frequently seen in the side deck of decks running the Fiendsmith package. Kuriphoton is a light fiend that can be added from deck to hand with Fiendsmith Tractus effect, and a possible option when going first against Tenpai to ensure that they will not be able to deal lethal damage on the next turn. Kuriphoton's effect makes it so you take no battle damage this turn, including effect damage. So it could also be cited when going second against FTK decks, such as the Gimmick Puppet deck, so you don't get OTK or the Tachyon FTK deck. I think that's a really cool incursion to have Kuriphoton, since it is partly searchable. Another way to stop the Tenpai Dragon, which might be also, if more people are doing this, why Tenpai's falling off. But let's look up Kuriphoton and kind of see what it does. So quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the grave and pay 2,000 life points. You take no damage this turn, and if this card is in your graveyard, you can send one Photon monster from your hand to the grave, except Kuriphoton. Add this card from a grave to your hand. So I think this is really cool because you don't have to activate this in the battle phase like some different ways to kind of stop them from OTKing you. You could just pay 2,000 life points, stop them, and even though paying 2,000 life points sucks, it really doesn't matter unless you're close to time. Otherwise life points are just a resource in the game. And you can also use this so that way the Gimmick Puppet deck can't FTK you, which I think is something to consider. So if you don't have a Kuriphoton, I would consider getting one or a play set of these if you need them, just because we might see this become a trend in the TCG as well. So we then Rise of Full Heights is another tech against Tenpai, with Beatrice, Lady the Eternal effect is to send Rise of Full Heights from deck to grave. Then during the opponent's turn, Rise of Full Heights effect is used to target one monster you control, making that monster the only attack target for your opponent. And after that monster leaves the field, the opponent's monsters would not be able to attack. A common trick is to use Rise of Full Heights effect and target a monster would leave the field, such as IP Masquerena effect or SB Little Knight's effect. And it says Law went 8-2 and finished 5th through 8th in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Asian WCQ 2024 Hong Kong, which had 326 participants. So if you look at his deck, I think it's pretty standard. We're seeing the 3 Bellstar, 2 Snake Eye, I believe that's at 2 Poplar, Oak. We have the Fiendsmith package in here. We see how many hand traps we got. We have 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we're at a higher hand trap count here, and I think this makes more sense than swapping in the droplets. They are playing Crossout and Callbys. Again, Callby being very solid, going second still to out cards like Princess. It's still decent as a board breaker if you do draw it, and Crossout being good going first or second, since you can potentially hit certain cards if they set maybe a floodgate that you want to try to hit. It can be okay for that, but I think the big thing in decks like Snake Eye being the best deck in the format going first, this can also be set if they don't hand trap you to hit their engine, which will probably make it next to impossible for them to play. So I think that's really the big thing with Crossout that becomes really good, where in rogue decks it's just to stop hand traps. In the best decks you can use it to stop engine and hand traps. So that's pretty cool. And then we're also seeing a talent. So we're seeing a pretty heavy hand trap lineup here. And I think we're seeing Droll really come into the format because it cuts off the Snake Eye deck from using Fiendsmith to kind of start. So I think that's really cool. We can see now that including the Fiendsmith package does eat into some space, having to run the 2 links, the Beatrice and the Wave King and the monster. So kind of see them cutting down on some other options here. But that kind of changes for us because we don't even have Link Kuriboh and the Heat Soul package really anymore because of the banning of Link Kuriboh. So that gives us a few extra spots as well. And then we can see that he's playing Kuriphoton. We're seeing Lightning Storms, Cosmics, Dusters, Heavy Storm, a lot of back row hate. We're seeing them go to the summon limit, which we got banned in the TCG because this card is crazy going first. There can be only one since their M board ends on a lot of different types. That could still be decent against certain decks that do have that commitment. Stopping Tenpai, for example, where they're using Rivalry to stop Snake Eye. And then we see another nib if you, have more combo. And then we're seeing him side droplets, which again, I think it makes more sense just to commit to a lot of hand traps. And then maybe if you have bad matchups where Droll's not good or certain hand traps aren't good, you can bring in the droplets to try to stop certain decks from going off. So I like this list a lot. I think this makes a lot of sense. Overall, and again, we still see them playing the Yubel Star and the Silvera package to stop cards like droplets or other board breakers. So I think a pretty interesting package that maybe we'll see used if we go to more of a board breaker approach, or maybe a mix with some board breakers. So next we have Tenpai Dragon. Heliosphere Dragon is a tech that some Tenpai Dragons are using for the mirror match. Heliosphere Dragon's effect prevents the opponent from declaring attack while the opponent has 4 or less cards in their hand, and this card is only monster you control. Heliosphere Dragon is a dragon monster, so it could be special summoned off Heretic Sphere, Heavenly Spheres effect. Yang went 9-1 and finished 1 through 4th in the Yu-Gi-Oh! China Mainland WCQ Guangzhou, which had 480 participants. He went 7-2 and finished 9th through 16th in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Asian WCQ Hong Kong, which had 326 participants. So if we look at their list, 3 fire, 3 white, 1 green, 2 yellow, and 1 Dora Draco, very common ratio. We see 2 nibs here, 1 Magnamut. Again, I think makes sense. It's a starter going second to get your engine if you need it. 3 Ash, Maxx, Effect Veilers, Trolls, DD Crows, and we're seeing droplets and effect and infinite permanence. So in terms of hand traps here, we have 1, 2, we'll say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we're seeing a way heavier hand trap lineup, I think, than last metagame report, and we're seeing them main droplets. I like this approach a lot for Tenpai. I think I'm liking the approaches I'm seeing from the decks this week from last week. I think it makes sense. I think the fact that if you are gonna main a board breaker, I think droplets make sense to do. And you're already playing like, I think 18 hand traps we counted. There's not much better to go outside of maybe Mourner in this position, or extra Droll, or another DD Crow or something. So I feel like I can see droplets being the case when you have this much room for hand traps, where I really like what the Snake Eye deck was doing, just kind of playing around that super high hand trap count again. Because I think that's unfortunately what's needed this format. I think Prosperity being hit to 1 is a hit to this type of deck, but I think getting the Genroku kind of yellow dragon does help mitigate that, where I think right now we really need the Prosperity in our list because the deck just doesn't have enough engine to be able to compete. I think overall everything is making sense. We're seeing the kind of way to stop the Tenpai mirror with Heliosphere, which sounds like a pretty rough mirror to be in. We have also the Cookie Miru Dragon to stop light dark decks, Shifter being cited. I'm kind of surprised they're not maining this, but it's such a good card in the format. I could see this being solid. But again, Tenpai is being more represented, so it's okay versus Tenpai, but not as amazing. We are seeing them go with the Heat Wave. I think I'd rather maybe just play better hand traps, because Heat Wave is a mind game card. Or maybe just more blowout cards for back row. I like Cosmic. It's a very good way for dealing with certain decks. It could be good first and second, but I have seen a lot more Tenpai decks just going for, Duster. They also have Heavy Storm in the OCG and the Lightning Storms to kind of just get rid of any back row, all the floodgates people are playing. And in that case, I actually do like the Duster and Heavy Storms better, but then maybe these are for going first patterns. Since these are good first and second, where the others are only good going second. We see Kaiser being played as like a floodgate they have access to that we don't, thank goodness. And then we have Rivalry, again, what they're playing to stop Snake Eye, and Red Reboot to also be able to stop some of these floodgates, where we've been really using a lot of skill drain because we lost Summit Limit. So I do think that's interesting. That's the route we've seen people going. And next we have Yubel. So Give Fun Card Shop had published an interview with Lian about the recent victory in the China Mainland WCQ 2024 Wuhan Regional Qualifier. And there's a link to this if you want to see it. In the article, he discussed about the various card choices and ratios. Running Bestial Monsters in the main deck is a great tech in the current metagame against Fiendsmith. Bestial Monsters are also level 6, so they function as extenders and allowed to XYZ Beatrice of the Eternal. Using Bestial Monsters to make Beatrice also covers the Fiendsmith or Fiendsmith, allowing them to XYZ summon DDD High Wave King Caesar later. The drawback of Bestials in the main deck is the poor performance against Tenpai Dragon. So Leon went 8-1-1 and finished 1 through 3rd in the Yu-Gi-Oh! China Mainland WCQ Wuhan, which had 360 participants. So I do think that's a really interesting choice. In terms of Bestials, we're just seeing 2 being mained in this deck, but I think that can make sense for us. But again, then you also lose the Tenpai, which has been losing representation. So I think for this tournament, from how the metagame report's been going, I think it makes sense, and is a good tactic to use. Also covers more rogue decks like Labyrinth, which these are pretty solid at. Also helps with decks like Branded, which are pretty good. So I think that makes sense. We're seeing them play a little bit more of the Spirit of Yubel. Maybe that makes more sense. I've heard some discussion on maybe upping this once you have Phantom Yubel. But I could see maybe playing this at 1, trying to cut your bricks down. I think with Phantom, though, I think we've seen some people playing more of these, where I think in the TCG it made sense to kind of cut down on some of these options for bricks. We have the Fiendsmith package, which is great in the deck. They are using the core for the extra extension off the Spirit Gates. We see them playing a good amount of hand traps here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 here. We also kind of have the callbys and crossouts. We see Nightmare Pain being cut to 1, which I think makes sense. I don't know if this card is that amazing, so for them to play. And then we also have the Unchained package here, which is cool. So again, I think this deck is very good as ability to play around hand traps with, having the Phantom Yubel that we just got. So it'll be really interesting to see how this does in the TCG, as well as what happens in the deck depending on what cards we get. Will this affect it much if we get, the closed Sky Link? Makes Fiendsmith not as good because you can't just go into it off other stuff, but I think we'll still see Fiendsmith have a huge impact on the metagame, even if we don't get that Link monster. And I think it's also something that we should keep in mind with the use of Bestials to stop the Fiendsmith package, and maybe Droll becoming more prevalent in the main deck for us as well, that I could see if Fiendsmith becomes heavily represented in the format. So I can see those changes happening in the TCG. If we look at his side deck here, we have, 2 Nibirus. I think it's interesting they're playing more Nibirus with it not being great against Tenpai, but then also not being as good with everyone being able to make High Wave King Caesar. But if you pair of other hand traps, it's still decent, so I could definitely see siding it. We have Phantasme to draw into other cards, and they're also playing Droplets and Cosmics, so more of a board breaker approach with Duster and Change of Heart as well. So maybe if you go for board breakers and you swap out some bad hand traps, you can go Phantasme to draw into them. And then Solemn Judgment is a good just going first card in general. Maybe stop some of these blowouts like Droplets or other cards. So because I do think Yubel, I think maybe has a hard time with Droplets, so maybe that could be another reason to play it. A card like this, or other reasons why people are playing Droplets in the OCG. So I think really interesting metagame report. For our conclusion, we have nearing the end of the OCG 2024-04 format, and the metagame has settled to around Fiendsmith, Snake Eye, Tenpai Dragon, and Yubel taking top contending spots. Hey everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content and you want to support the channel, you can check out the TCG affiliate link in the description below. It supports the channel and costs you nothing, and you'll just be doing the same thing you normally do when you buy cards from TCG Player. If you're new to buying cards from TCG Player, check out my website. I have a section on it that helps out new people, kind of explaining some of the aspects of TCG Player, so that way you can get the most out of your money and you don't fall into some of these weird things that some people do to push up the price of cards. If you want to become a patron on the channel, check out my Patreon. It's another way you can help support the channel. We have different perks you can check out, like a lot of archetype proxies you see on the screen. Every week, I put a new one out that everyone on the channel can vote on YouTube, and then these go to Patreon for you to print out. You can also join for early access. Some videos would be 1 day early access, others that are in a longer series could be weeks out in advance, and you can get the entire thing at once, while everyone on YouTube has to wait week by week for all the videos to come out. You can also join for an exclusive Yu-Gi-Oh! Reaction series where I watch through the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, we have discussions in the comments, and watch through it together as well. Plus there are other perks coming out in the future. Everyone, thanks again for watching the content. Everyone, well that's it for Metagame Report 8 and 9 from Road to the King. Some pretty interesting developments here. The 2 big ones would be the Heliosphere for the Tenpai Dragon Mirror match, as well as the Kuriphoton. I think those are pretty interesting kind of changes in the metagame in terms of card choices. Other aspects that we've seen, kind of Forbidden Droplets seem to be a little bit more of a side deck card versus a main deck card. We're kind of seeing a little bit less of that kind of combined hand trap and board breaker approach, and seeing kind of going back to more of a board breaker approach right now. And I think that's kind of more the way I'm favoring it in terms of what I think probably is working best right now in the format. Unfortunately, we have seen some success, at least in the TCG, with some board breakers. I think you have to be careful with the way they synergize, because the 2 kind of approaches conflict unless there's certain ways in which you're trying to hit certain decks. So it definitely can happen and work, but I don't know if that's the best choice right now. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I look forward to doing the next one with you. I think it came out, so you should have that pretty soon for number 10 and 11. And I look forward to seeing you guys in that video. I'll see you there.